Mercedes is plummeting further into despair, and there's no glimmer of hope on the horizon. With their current state, Hamilton's move to Ferrari seems like the smartest decision ever made. This was supposed to be the season of redemption for Mercedes, but instead they've sunk even lower than Aston Martin and McLaren. Can Mercedes salvage their reputation, or is this the end of their reign as a top team? In the Japanese Grand Prix, Mercedes qualified in 7th and 9th positions. However, during the race, their cars were unable to make significant progress and ultimately finished in the same positions they started in. This lack of advancement may have been due to a poorly planned strategy or indicative of the team's ongoing struggles this season. The weekend initially held promise for Mercedes, but it ultimately culminated in a rather average outcome. Despite some positive aspects, there's an undeniable sense within the team that they're not performing at the level they once did. While there's still a glimmer of hope, Mercedes acknowledges that their current situation doesn't align with their previous standards or immediate goals. After the race, Toto Wolff shared insights on Mercedes' current status, describing it as a rebuilding phase. Despite 3 years under the same rules, the team still faces challenges. Wolff acknowledged that Red Bull currently holds a significant advantage. Realistically, Mercedes is now aiming to compete with McLaren, Aston Martin, and eventually Ferrari. This assessment aligns with the team's current reality in 2024. Despite these challenges, there's still some optimism within Mercedes. This weekend, although the race wasn't competitive, there were improvements in car behavior. This suggests that Mercedes might have a better understanding of its issues, particularly regarding tire performance, which previously hindered its potential by placing excessive strain on the rear axle. However, Mercedes finds itself in a position where it's currently the 4th or 5th best team, especially evident on tracks like Suzuka. Acknowledging this as their baseline, the next hurdle for Mercedes is proving that they can significantly enhance their performance. This will require substantial improvements to compete at the level they aspire to. Suzuka offered a glimmer of hope for Mercedes. While the earlier races raised serious concerns, the team is starting to grasp its car's complexities. Although Mercedes falls short of its initial 2024 targets, there are positive indications of progress. Improvements in tire management, especially balancing the front and rear axles, suggest advancements have been made despite the car's downforce limitations. Even in qualifying, Lewis Hamilton showcased greater comfort with the car compared to his inconsistent start to the season, indicating a growing confidence within Mercedes about their direction. Although there remains a considerable pace deficit, this was anticipated prior to Suzuka. However, Mercedes has shown an ability to identify and address weaknesses, offering hope for further development. Even achieving some success at a challenging track like Suzuka, where they struggled last year, marks a notable step forward, although it falls short of being sufficient. Perhaps Mercedes has had a real breakthrough in understanding their current car, although it's possible that progress was less apparent at one of their weaker tracks. Yet, even with the potential breakthrough, the reality remains: the car isn't up to par. Competition at the top is fierce, with tiny differences separating the top 10. Any slight misstep or underperformance can result in significant losses in positions behind rivals like Red Bull and Ferrari. Therefore, it's concerning to see Mercedes qualifying and finishing in 7th and 9th places. Even if the team has found a starting point to build upon, there's still the daunting task of significantly improving the car's performance. Looking back at Mercedes' recent car designs, there's little evidence to inspire confidence that they fully grasp what's needed next. It felt like the same old story, starting the sessions decently but failing to improve as much as others did. Many people hang on to every word Hamilton says, and this weekend he mentioned driving the best car he's had since these rules came into effect. However, when it came down to it, the performance just wasn't there. In qualifying, he trailed 0.6 seconds behind pole position, with Russell behind by 0.8 seconds. Trying a different strategy didn't really make a difference. Looking at Sainz, who opted for 2 stops compared to Leclerc, who stuck with 1, the gap wasn't significant. During the race, Hamilton finished 48 seconds behind the winner, equating to a deficit of 0.9 seconds per lap. Russell wasn't much different, trailing by 46 seconds. The engineers in Brackley must still be scratching their heads over what's going wrong. As each 2024 race weekend passes, Lewis Hamilton's decision to join Ferrari appears wiser. Ferrari has addressed its major race weaknesses, races and is consistently making better strategy calls than Mercedes. It has solidified its position as the second fastest team in Formula One. The team seems to be on a path where it could challenge Red Bull on certain circuits this season, setting a promising foundation for 2025. Meanwhile, Mercedes seems stuck in a cycle similar to its 2023 struggles, fluctuating between the front and back of the chasing pack each weekend. While there's still hope for improvement, it's unlikely to happen faster than Ferrari's progress, especially with the current 2024 cars. Despite Mercedes' challenges, Hamilton can find solace in the progress of his future team. It seemed unlikely that Mercedes would be able to make the hard tyre strategy work due to their lack of pace. It's evident now that Mercedes isn't even performing as the top Mercedes-powered team anymore, considering McLaren's disappointment despite being ahead for most of the day. McLaren lost a position to Mercedes on the final lap, while battling for a podium with the lead car of Norris, who was well ahead of Russell and Hamilton. With McLaren holding a 35-point lead over Mercedes in third place in the constructors' standings after 4 races, the gap is even larger than the one between Red Bull and Ferrari at the top. Perhaps Mercedes took the hard tyre gamble out of a sense of desperation, acknowledging their lack of pace and feeling compelled to try something different. If this is the case, it's understandable. However, if the decision stemmed from a misplaced confidence in their ability to make it work, it might be better for Mercedes to accept their current standing in F1 as a secondary force and focus on regaining their former dominance. Should Mercedes be worried? This question would have been reasonable back in 2022 during pre-season testing. After more than 2 years of failing to compete, it's becoming increasingly clear that Mercedes is not the dominant force it once was. Adjusting targets accordingly seems necessary now. Even Toto Wolff, the team principal, seems to be acknowledging this shift. It took about a decade for the media to ease off discussing Manchester United's struggles in the English Premier League after Alex Ferguson left. Hopefully, we won't have to endure a similar decade-long conversation about Mercedes. However, given their supposed new concept and understanding of their issues, it seems justified this year. That being said, with 4 races completed and considering their current position, it's time for Mercedes to reassess their goals. Securing third place in the championship this year would be a commendable achievement at this stage. Mercedes is facing a tough reality. It's highly unlikely they'll be contending for a podium before 2026, given how far behind they are. The competition seems out of their reach, and their strategies and pit stops have been lacking. The team's performance falls short of expectations, especially considering their aim to be closer to Red Bull Racing and Scuderia Ferrari. Mercedes needs to acknowledge that they have a lot of ground to make up. While there's still a long season ahead, hoping for a comeback and surpassing McLaren and Aston Martin might be wishful thinking. However, this optimism could turn into reality once they fully understand the capabilities of their mechanical platform. Lewis Hamilton's 10 points in 4 races, just 1 point ahead of Stroll, highlights the disappointing start to the season. Some might argue that Mercedes' decline has begun, but this perspective lacks honesty and fails to grasp the challenges of the ground effect era. All good things eventually come to an end, and Lewis Hamilton's move to Scuderia Ferrari is starting to make sense. It's possible he's already looking forward to the postseason test in Abu Dhabi. Mercedes' strategy has been under scrutiny, with criticism for not taking enough risks and failing to adapt to changing circumstances. They've been outperformed by Ferrari in this aspect. The decision to switch to hard tyres after the red flag raised questions, especially considering their limited experience with this tyre compound. Perhaps keeping Lewis Hamilton out longer and putting him on soft tyres for the final stint would have been a better choice, considering his decent tyre life from previous runs. Mercedes needs to let go of their past championship winning strategy and adapt to their current situation. They may need to prioritize one driver over the other to secure a better points haul. The team's performance is dismal at the moment, and changes are necessary for improvement. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments below.